don't you guys go fuck yourselves?
Let's not give it loud for everybody for Anthony Eugenio. We're gonna have next time. Very funny. Wayne Russell, everybody.
Welcome to the Open Mic Pain with Anthony and Wayne podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to an Open Mic Pain with Anthony and Wayne. We're here with a special guest edition again, and this time we are this is not hyperbole. This is one of our comedy heroes for sure, especially Wayne, and I'll say why in a minute.
You guys need to up your standards.
Yeah, so our standards are either in the gutter or in the ceiling, depending on who you talk to. For Steve Bjork, how you doing, buddy?
How are you guys?
Good, great to have you. And so I mentioned this because Wayne's very first hosting gig was with Steve, and we even framed it. So you're on our walls too, isn't that crazy?
Sweet.
How you doing, Wayne?
Good. Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up because I had this idea when I started stand-up that I would have certain frames of different posters that I was on based on different milestones. So the first was the first paid gig I got. So I have that poster up with the $25 I got in it. The next one was the first opening spot I did, which was for Casey Crawford. I had a spot ready for my first hosting gig, which was with you. So I have that up there as well, and there's a few more check boxes to be checked, but I'm proud to have that one up there.
Hey, well, so what's the next milestone?
It's getting a kiss with you on camera, so that's the next one. We got to figure that out. Yeah, nice. There we go, Wayne. Another one off your list.
Yeah, I mean, my original thought was, first paid spot, opener, host, feature, and I don't know if it'll ever come to it, but if I ever do headline a show, legitly, that would be one as well.
Well, I saw both you guys recently, and you're both on your way to that landmark. You guys are doing. How long have you guys been doing it?
16 months now, 17. We started in March of 2023. What are we in? 24? Yeah, 23.
You guys started together?
We did.
Like 4 days
Week
apart.
apart. Yeah.
Were you buddies before?
Yeah, we've been friends for 14 years now, 13 years.
You're gonna have to say all the dates.
All right. Well, I got to tell you, for 16 months, you guys are you know how to write jokes. You're doing well.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot.
Trying to follow your lead.
Yeah, I'm gonna get all the gushing out here because I don't want to spend a whole episode.
You're gonna do the whole fucking episode gushing.
I probably am. So we talk about you quite a bit, Steve, for a few reasons. The very first time
I should listen more.
You should. The first time I really started talking about you was when I saw you with the Luna, and you were doing. Okay. You first started working on that ultrasound joke.
Yeah.
And
if I remember right, it went horribly.
It went great in my eyes, and then you thought it went horribly, so you decided to do it again. And for me, that was a learning moment for me where you were just so comfortable. And you took control of the situation, and you knew that it didn't go the way you wanted to. So you did it again, and I was like, man, I have to be comfortable. I have to learn to be comfortable like that because that was incredible. So I bring that up quite a bit. The next one was when I saw you.
Let me just touch on this real quick.
Yeah.
Let me touch on this real quick. Being comfortable takes a long time.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, you guys both look pretty comfortable on stage. At 16 months, I don't think I was as comfortable as you guys are. I remember thinking I was, but realizing later that I wasn't. I mean, it takes a while to really find yourself on the stage as opposed to trying to be something.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever not feel like you're in the Boston tunnel, wind coming by you at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and you can't think of anything else, and you get off, you're like, wow, that's 5 minutes or whatever the heck the minutes are? Do you ever feel present on stage? Because that has not happened to me yet.
That's a great point, because that is when it's not really fun until you are enjoying and feeling and present in every moment. I mean, that's when you are really comfortable on stage, is when you're completely present and you're able to recognize that you're there doing what you're doing and enjoying it. And that also helps with the connection to the audience, which, at least for my style, is crucial. There are times when I get off stage and I know I did the job, but I didn't connect with the audience, and so I know it wasn't the best I could have done.
I I want to touch on that, the feeling present part. I haven't felt that 100%, but Saturday night, we Anthony hosted and I guest spotted at the Merrimack Beer Garden for Mike Katrobis.
Yeah.
And for some reason, like every cylinder fired for me on that night. It's up to the possible point for me, I think, that I could hit. Like if this is my level, I was like right there, and that was the most present I felt. It wasn't as present as I could have felt, but so far that was the most present I felt, where I was getting really good reactions. I had an applause break at one point, and I just stopped and took it in, and like I just slowed it down. I was like, "This feels really, really good." Like, and I have a feeling that's kind of what you're talking about. It's not that was the most fun I've ever had on stage.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between telling the audience things and bringing them in and communicating. There's a big difference. There are people who speak at the audience, and there are people who speak to the audience.
It's true. You do have to connect. I killed like Norman Bates. Like I wake up in the middle of it, and
I was going to say
there's
anything.
a dead body on the ground, and I'm like, that's what happened. That's every time.
What kind of podcast is this?
This one,
What is it?
Pain.
Is this true crime?
Oh yeah, basically. By the amount of dead bodies that Wayne's left on the ground, I think so.
So, real quick, back to my original point. We talk about you quite a bit. After I saw you at the Luna, just a couple months later, I saw you at the Nashua Center for the Arts with Chris Zito and Mike Katrobis, and I saw that same joke, the ultrasound joke, and how you changed it in such a short amount of time and so incredibly. That was another like awe-inspiring thing for me. Like, goddamn, how do you do that? But you did it, and it was incredible. And then the other thing that really hit us, is Anthony talks about this all the time, was he went up right after you at the Winter Circle, not long after that Nashua show, where I think Anthony would say the first 6 or 7 people didn't do so hot.
Yeah, it was the first time I ever. So normally, how I still to this day do shows are I'm at the mercy of the crowd. If the crowd's awesome, I'm gonna have a great set a lot of the time, and so would be a lot of people on that show. And if the crowd's horrible, I'm going to eat a bag of shit like I normally do every time. So we were at Winter Circle one night, and I was like 9th, and I think you were 7th. And the first 6 people were just eating it, and the crowd was horrible. And I was like, man, the first time I'm going to see Steve, he's going to completely eat shit. That sucks. And because I was like, there's nothing you can do about it. Like, it is what it is. And you went up and you had, I think you tell me if it's wrong, but I think you went to a point in your book where you're like, this is jokes that I'm going to bring the energy up, and then I think you went into new stuff in the middle of the ultrasound bit and all that stuff in the middle. But you completely transformed the energy of the room, and then I got to ride the wave afterwards, and it was awesome. So yeah, I do tell that because I've never seen that at an open mic before or since.
Well, that's nice of you guys to say all these things. I mean, just a lot of it just comes with experience. And if I'm at an open mic and I'm working on stuff, I will do a couple of tried and true things just to get the audience on my side, and then I sneak in, or sometimes I'm blatant, or sometimes I sneak in the new stuff.
So let's Tarantino this a little. We talk about how great you are now. Let's talk about your very first time. What got you onto a stage the first time to tell your first joke?
So I wanted to be a stand-up comedian since I was 7 years old. That's all I ever wanted. I was 7 years old. I heard a Bill Cosby album. We didn't know he was a monster at the time. And I remember saying to my mom, what's this guy do for a living? And she's like, this is it. He tells jokes, makes people laugh. And I said, wow, no heavy lifting. This is for me. So that was my goal from that moment on. When I was in college, I had a job at a comedy club called Stevie D's Comedy Tonight. It was out in Middleton, Mass. And this was in 1986, 87. And, this was the middle of the boom. Lines were out to the street, all around the parking lot. We would sell out every single night, and I worked there as a doorman, and I watched all the comedians, Kevin Knox, Mike McDonald, Lenny, Don Gavin. I mean, Mike Donovan, all of the amazing artists, and I just watched them as much as I could. And then I got the courage to go up on stage at the original Stitches Comedy Club in 1987. One of my buddies was going to BU at the time, so he brought a bunch of friends, and I had 5 minutes. And when I first walked on that stage, and the spotlight hit you, and you couldn't see the audience, and it was terrifying. And I did my 5 minutes. I didn't hear or experience any of it. I don't recollect much. I remember walking on the stage, and I remember afterwards. That's all I remember. And after the show, my friend and his buddies thought I did pretty well for a new person, and I didn't think I did well. And I thought, at the time, you were you either kill or you're not a comedian. So I didn't understand the growth aspect. So I figured, I guess my dream will never come true. So I didn't do it again for another 3 years. And over those 3 years, comedians were telling me, look, nobody goes out and kills the first time they're on stage. You got to grow into it. You got to give it some time. But it took 3 years for me to get the courage back up. So I went back on stage in 1990. I think the first time was at Nick's. And that's when I stuck with it. Because I started in 1990. And I did it for about 6-7 years. And then when I got married, I decided, you know what, maybe I shouldn't be chasing this. Maybe I should be a family guy. So I got a day job, and then Friday would come around, and I'd be exhausted, and I'd think, I don't even feel like doing a show. And then I was like, well, who the hell am I to not feel like doing? Somebody's going to pay me to tell jokes, and I don't feel like it. I should get out of the way. So I got out of it for, I usually think it's about 10 years, but it was probably more like 6 or 7, maybe 8. I got out of it entirely, and then came back in the mid 2000s.
It's like they say, if you love something, let it go, and if it comes back to you, it's yours forever, right?
Well, I will say this. I really was taking it for granted there for a while, and then when I got away from it, from the time I got back, which is now like the mid 2000s till now, which is 20 years later, I look forward to it every minute of every day. And I get there, and I don't care if there's 5 people in the crowd. I'm just thrilled to be able to be on stage and tell jokes. It's the best thing in the world.
That's one of the quotes I heard you say. It might have been on Jacques' podcast. I can't remember where I heard it, but you had basically said you give the same show to whether or not there's 5 people or 500 people, because the people that are there for you. You can't get mad at them for showing up. You'd be mad at the people that didn't show up, but give them the show. And
exactly. I've seen a lot of comedians. Yeah, I've seen a lot of comedians shit on the crowd if there's not enough of a crowd. Well, it's not their fault. They're the ones that paid the ticket price and came.
Yeah. Yeah, I took that to heart, and I think Anthony does as well. And that was kind of like another turning point for us. Like, we need to keep that in mind too, because it's, like you said, it's not their fault. They came to see you. Perform the hell out. Yeah.
So how'd you get on? So back when you wanted to start and you went on Nick's, what was the process on getting on Nick's back then? Because I did Nick's for the first time a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I should just quit comedy now. That was the greatest thing I'm ever going to do or ever wanted to do. But I tried to get on it when we first started comedy, obviously, and they laughed at me. How was there an open mic? Like, what was the situation back then?
Yes. Yeah, it was open mic. Open mic at Nick's was on Monday night, and you would sign up, and you'd get there early and sign up. I think it was the process. I know that was the process for Stitches. I'm kind of blanking on how we did Nick's, but it was no internet. There was no signing up online or anything. You would, have to put in your name, and either you got picked or you didn't. And even if you didn't, you just like I'm sure you guys do, you hang out and support your other buddies. Then you keep doing that until you get to the point where, at that time, Nick's was operating 7 nights a week, and Monday was the open mic, and then, every other show was a booked show. And you'd show up during weeknights, and sometimes if you had, if people thought you were good enough, you might get a guest spot. Then there was the Comedy Connection. It was right down the street on Warrington at the Charms Playhouse. That room was absolutely magic. and there was no open mic there. You had to be doing it long enough and have enough people referring you that they would invite you, and you'd get a showcase of like 10 minutes. And that again, that was a 7-night-a-week club too. Stitches was 7 nights a week. Played Against Sam's was 3 nights, I think. There was, and then Dick Doherty's Comedy Vault was, I think at the time, was it Thursday through Sunday? But there was an opportunity to get on stage, within a few city blocks, 7 nights a week.
Like incredible clubs too. Was the Ding Ho still operational at that time?
And there were real crowds, by the way. Now, when I came in, Ding Ho was gone. But these were real shows. You go there on a Monday, and it would be sold out. That's like Nick's at the time. I don't know what the room looks like now. I haven't been there in quite a while. But it was a 400-seat room.
Oh, yeah, I went there. When I did it, was not 400 people. That's for sure. 40? 45, I think we did, right? Something like that.
Yeah, I think it was about 40.
Yeah.
I think it was about 40.
Yeah, summer. Summer sucks.
Do you remember the first jokes you did on when you first went up? Do you remember any of them? Do you still have any? Are there any little nuggets of those in your bits these days?
I actually will tell you, I often will close, and this only works in New England, and quite frankly, only parts of New England, but I have this joke that is about steamed clams, and I often will close with that, and quite frankly, that's a homage to, it is the first really solid, good joke I ever wrote. Now, it has evolved over time, but the premise of it and the basics of it go right back to my early days. So that was, that wasn't one of my first, but that was early. My first jokes were all about drinking, girls, college. I was 21 at the time. So,
yeah.
I couldn't get away with the stuff I was doing then. Now, would just be ridiculous.
Yeah,
you saw Shane Gillis. Remember that when he did his open mic joke at the show we saw him at?
I don't remember what it was, but I do remember that he did that.
So we saw Shane Gillis a couple months ago, and he did his closer and all that, and he went, all right, this is a joke that I used to do at open mics, and that's what he actually closed with, and it was really cool to see, because obviously that's where we're at, so we're like, man, it kind of felt like a structure of a joke that we would write and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't do the steam clam joke every show, but it is kind of a reminder. It's a tribute to my early days, I guess.
So you must have you obviously have an incredible arsenal of jokes in your back pocket. So when you're preparing for a show, do you go up knowing like, hey, I'm going to do this, or that, or do you just kind of go with the flow and feel it? And it seems like you're just going with the flow, and you're like, I'm going to do this now. I'm going to do this.
Ideally, that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
But the truth is, I pretty much always start the same way. And then depending on how I feel after the first 4 minutes, then I might go in a different direction. And after 4 minutes, I really don't know what I'm going to do. But the first 4 minutes is kind of it's an opportunity for me to get to know the crowd, for the crowd to get to know my style. And then, I can't do the same thing every night. I just can't do it. It's no fun. So, I will do all different stuff on a regular basis.
How many shows do you do in a week?
Well, summertime is different. It's a little slower, but on average, 3 or 4 shows a week.
Man, that's awesome. I was pumped when I had 2. Like, this is incredible.
Last week, you hosted at the Steve Sweeney's Comedy Den that me and Wayne were on, so we should have said that in the beginning, and that was fucking awesome. What a surprise that we had when we got there that was you. It was great. And there's a couple people that went over on time, and me and Wayne were so confused about it afterwards because we live in this world of 5 minutes, so it seems so natural for us to be like, hey, I know what 5 minutes is, bam. And we were talking to Mike Kay and Pat Collins afterwards, and they said that's actually... They think one of the hardest things to do is write a good 5 minutes for them now, like to be able to be funny in that time. Do you agree with them in that regard, or do you think it depends on the type of comedian and all that, even later on?
It depends on the type of comedian, for sure. I'm more of a long verse type of comedian. Most of my stuff is stories and or, big chunks, that go for at least 5 minutes at a time. But if you're doing a competition or like that, or something like that, and you're my style of comedian, what you do is go through your act, pull out the short bits or the short chunks that you're able to transition from one to the next. I've never been, like one of the shortest jokes that I have, and that I've always liked, is I say, even when I'm in great shape, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'2", I have big shoulders, big hands. I don't even have a small intestine. They're both huge. That's the kind of short joke that you want to just line up a bunch of those for 5 minutes, as opposed to doing one subject for 5 minutes when you're in a competition.
Yeah, I wish
I agree with that.
If, like, ever
think
not
if
do
you,
that. Sorry, go on.
I was gonna say I agree with you. I think if you're doing like a one premise 5-minute joke and you lose the audience, it's like there's no out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least if you're going bam bam bam, you could maybe hit or miss on a few, but not miss on the entirety.
Yep.
I think that's kind of what Mike was getting at, where it's kind of hard to do that when you're so used to having 45 minutes to stretch out and slow things down. And
Yeah, generally I'm tasked with doing 45 minutes, and I will generally ask, is it a hard out? Are you okay if I'm having fun and the audience is having fun if I go longer? And that way, if I know I've got the flexibility there, then I don't have to worry about cutting this out, or I got to add this, or I have to cut this one short because I want to do my closing bit and I won't have time. It's just doing 45 minutes now. It's like, I don't know how I'm going to fit everything I want to do in. So 5 minutes is rough. I actually, for the first time ever, was this 2 or 3 years ago? I've never been a comedy contest guy because my style is just better for long form. But just 3 years ago, for the first time ever, I decided to compete in the Boston Comedy Festival. So that was, I figured that was something I'd never done. I wanted to have that experience. And I wanted the exercise of having to have a 5 minute and then a 10 minute and then so forth. And it was great. It was a great experience. I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, we walked on the stage at Berkeley when they did it for this year. Like, we got to go to the green room and then like go on that stage, and it was crazy. That was one of the most surreal experiences we had. Like, thinking, because when we started for at least 8 months, we really practically didn't know comedy happened outside of a dive bar. That's just all we were in. So to go there and be like, you can say the same things here and people will listen. That was huge, and that was just this year. Jim McHugh, obviously, shout out to him. He's awesome. That festival is incredible. How'd you do in it?
Yeah. Well, I moved on to the semifinals, and then my choice for the 10 minutes was probably not the right choice. I did very well, but I did this 10-minute routine about my kids and getting how I got my kids and how I get them ready in the morning. And it was, like I just said a few minutes ago, doing one subject for 10 minutes, probably not the right strategy. But it's something I wanted to be seen by the industry. So I was happy with my set, very happy with my set. But
is that the one where you go from point to point on stage?
Yes.
If you don't mind my saying that, I can cut that out if you don't want me to. But
I
remember you doing that when I saw you in Nashua, and I was dying. That was such a great bit. That whole thing. Yeah, it's so relatable. I only have the one kid. But I feel like I'm still going to all 4 sections of the house because he's so goddamn fast.
Oh, yeah.
But
yeah, but so it might not have been the right strategy, but I'm still glad I did it that way.
Yeah.
Like, when you first started, were a lot of your, like, because this is the thing, all I have are 1 to 2.5 minute jokes because I go so crazy economy of words, take out so much. I always just end up with the root of the joke, and I want to be more conversational so I can frankly have more material, do longer. But I feel like when I'm in an open mic or when I'm at a show, a local show or anything like that, the pressure's kind of on to have a lot of laughs per minute. So you feel like you got to stack a lot of jokes. Do you, like, first of all, did that happen to you, or were you always more conversational? And if it was that way for you, like, when did you notice the transition?
Well, I mean, at that time, I was stuck in a 5-minute window. That's what I had. And when I first got to an opening spot, which was a 15-minute spot, that's when it became more conversational because I had to fill 15 minutes. I was like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to do 15 minutes, but we'll find a way. So that's really how that happened. I mean, it started out in a 5-minute window, which seemed like a long time for the first, several months of your career. I mean, 5 minutes can last forever.
That's kind of like I think about that sometimes with the jokes I have now that I'm using and I like. And we talked to Al Goniker. I don't know if you met him before, but
Yeah.
He had said when he was on the podcast that when you have these jokes or these interactions, you're slowing them down. You're almost like slowing time down. You might have this 30-second interaction, but that could be a 5-minute bit if you do it properly and you find the funny in that 30 seconds. That is like black magic to me. I look at some of the stuff I have that are based in reality and interactions. I'm like, where do you go to find the funny in some of this stuff? But guys like you and him do it. It's incredible.
Well, you guys are doing it too. I was impressed with the stuff you guys came up with after 16 months.
Oh, we appreciate that.
You guys are doing great. I will say, by the way, you said a very important word. Especially as you start getting more material, and I don't know how much material you guys have that you're comfortable if you do 15 minutes, you do a half hour, but one of the things that it took me a while to learn was I'd have this material that I liked, and maybe it was 10 minutes, and I get a 5-minute spot, and I'm trying to impress a booking agent. So my strategy was to go as fast as I could to get as much in as I could, and that is absolutely the worst thing you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Slow it down, and when 5 minutes is up, you get off the stage. Don't try and squeeze more jokes in than you possibly can.
We talk about that a lot with how like we saw Christine Hurley not too long ago at Navigation. Anthony got to open for her, and she used pauses so incredibly. She got laughs without saying anything, just the extra little pause. And
Samurai sword, she wielded those pauses in the middle. I was like, how? That's 10 minutes of pauses that are better than any joke I have. It's not fair.
Yeah, pauses are crucial if you're doing the art. If you're doing this as an art, pauses are crucial.
So you're still going out to different open mics here, and I know being you could stop into most shows and be like, hey, can I do a quick 10 or a quick 5 or whatever, and just kind of work something out. But are you still going to like the Strange Brew Tavern or like little things like that, little places like that rather, to do things? Or are you strictly like Winter Circle? I know you like the Winter Circle a lot.
The Winter Circle is close to home.
Mm-hmm.
So I do that. I'm not aware of a whole lot of open mics, but I like to get out to open mics and work on new stuff. Like at the Winter Circle, quite frankly, there's a portion of that crowd that they're there. The same crowd is there every week. So I hate to repeat material in front of them, but my style is I kind of go up with a thought with a few punchlines, and I work it all out. So I've got to do it. Like you mentioned seeing the ultrasound bit over and over again. I'm still working on that. So
I noticed it was different when I saw it on, I think you did Sunday. Was it Sunday or was it? I forget, whichever one it was. But I remember it was different than the last time I saw it. It was incredible. Blows my mind.
And so I'm still working on that. So I would like to find some more places to work on it. And I'm lucky in the point that if I have a Thursday night off and there's some booked shows, I can call and say, can I do 5-10 minutes? And they're fine with it usually. If I'm off on a Friday or Saturday, I can do that. And I'm fortunate enough that in the spot I'm in where if I'm doing a long set, I can work on new stuff in the middle of that. But if I feel like if it's just ideas and a couple of punchlines, I want to do it. I don't want to do it in a paid set.
So that was kind of a lead into a question for me. The culture of the open mics back when you first started versus what you see now, do you think it's generally the same? Or do you think it's vastly different?
It's vastly different. I don't know how you guys are doing it. I have utmost respect for you guys because the open mics that I've seen, there might be 5 or 10 people in the audience and then 12 comedians. So you're performing for your peers.
I'd
When
love
I
that
started
ratio.
out, what's that?
Love that ratio. We're normally like it's like 27 comedians and one really mad person that they accidentally walked in.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't. I don't think I could grow under that scenario. When I started, it was no matter where you're doing an open mic, there was a paid audience there. I mean, an audience that paid, and I don't mean 15 people. I mean 50. Like I remember there was this place in Somerville that we had an open mic, and it was considered just this measly little open mic that nobody went to, and we had 50 people every time.
That's
It was
incredible.
it was absolutely a different environment, and I have to be honest with you. I know that a lot of people say, "Hey, you haven't paid the dues that I paid. You don't know what it was like back then." I got to tell you, it was easier.
I'm definitely gonna be paying those dues type of pettiness person because I can even feel it now. Like if someone does like an awesome Mike Katrobis class where he books a showcase afterwards, and then they get in front of like 80 people and they kill or something, I want to take it from them. I'm like, you don't deserve it, because we didn't even know that existed for a long time. I did shows. I call it for a while, even to this day. I did mics that were for negative people, meaning the 4 people that were there were surprised by it and they were angry by it. So it was like literally the opposite of people.
Don't get me wrong. There were plenty of hell gigs. They were mostly paid, and they were mostly at the 99's restaurants. And there was this place called the Charlie Horse down in Kingston, Mass. And Tony V's got the greatest line. He said, "I was heckled by 101% of the crowd because while he was on stage, somebody that was playing pool in the other room came to the door, stood in the door with a pool cue, heckled him, and then walked back to play pool." At the Charlie Horse, it was a gig. I was still new. I was getting $50 a set to drive all the way down to Kingston, Mass. And I would go down there with optimism every time. And every time on the way home, I was like, I don't belong in this business. I'm not good enough. I shouldn't be doing this. I am never taking that gig again. Never, ever. And then the Comedy Connection say, "Hey, we got a date at the Charlie Horse." I'm like, all right, I'm in.
Yeah, we keep coming back.
That's how I felt on Sunday. So Sunday, I don't know how noticeable it was, but I flubbed 2 of my lines I've never flubbed before. But I drove home with such anger at myself. Like, how could I have done that? And
You're
then
so mad.
I'm like, I'm never doing a contest again. And then I saw there was a Wicked Funny contest on like Tuesday. I was like, I signed up right for that. I was like, yep, I'm down for that pain again. I'm good.
That's part of being a comedian. It's just the masochistic aspect of it.
Yeah, it sucks that we did open mics and we are used to 0 laughs, and now that we're doing shows, it's a lot easier in front of a crowd that wants to laugh. Obviously, sometimes to like, I don't want to say to a fault, but I appreciate how many times I had to bomb the first year because I'm obviously a lot more. If it doesn't go well, I'm like, well, it normally doesn't go well, so that's fine. But the more shows we do now, obviously more. Like Wayne had, like I said, the beer garden the other night, the best set of his life. It felt like he crushed. He had such a good time. And then we'll go to a something in Lowell, and someone will spit on us while we're doing it. And I don't know. I feel like it keeps it like I almost feel like I need that. Obviously,
Yeah, you need the hepatitis.
Exactly. Makes you stronger.
Absolutely.
Steve, what is that? What is you can do
The hepatitis?
No.
He knows.
I'm very familiar with that.
Yeah, look at his head.
All right, well, let's not get into that.
We bring it up every once in a while, and I think it's a very common sentiment with comics. But you could do the same joke 99 times and practically get a standing ovation. But then there's that one night where the crowd they just hate you for saying what you said on that one night. What is that an energy thing? What is that? Have you figured
That's
that
a
out
you
yet?
thing. That's a you thing. It's a me thing. Maybe I swallowed the line. Maybe I mumbled it. Maybe I shouted it when I should have whispered it. It is. I'm of the mind that I will never blame the audience, because you might see, like you saw the winner's circle where the first 6 comics weren't doing well. I don't remember who those people were, and I'm not disparaging them. But I'm just telling you, whoever's sitting in that audience, they came out for a reason. They could have stayed home. They could have, if they were pissed or upset or unhappy, they could have stayed home. They came out for a reason. So if I don't do my job, it's not their fault, it's mine. And like if I'm having a great set and one bulletproof joke for some reason bombs, then I think, geez, I wish I'd recorded my set to see what I did wrong.
Yeah, so because of, like you said, getting in front of the crowds is such a, like you had in the beginning, was such a big thing. We've been doing things to try to get in front of crowds, obviously, like past the normal stuff. Like we bought a PA system so we can run our own shows. We're hosting gigs and all that stuff. And so I've been talking about on the podcast for about 2 months how everybody likes me about 25% less when I host. I don't know what it is. I can't do anything about it. They just do. And you gave me some great advice where you said take control of the show, meaning like it's your show and you brought funny people with you, and that's the mentality you have to have. I can say that's helped a lot. Like I'm still 15% they like me less, but I'm getting up there.
Yeah, that's the mentality you got to have as a host, because it's funny how in Boston the host is usually considered the weakest act, the throwaway act. In other parts of the country, that's not the case. The host oftentimes, and you know a great example of this, Lenny Clark loves to host. And when he goes up to host, he brings the energy and the attitude that he's the star of the show. And he's gonna his friends are here to make you laugh too, but guess what? I'm the star. I mean, he doesn't have to say it. It's just all in his attitude and his delivery. And that's the secret to hosting. I mean, there's many secrets and there's many techniques, but that's one. You've got to go up there with the attitude that I'm not the host. I'm pulling the show together.
Now you learn something literally every time you do it. Like I learned last time not to do a joke about the economics of assholes. Like literal assholes. I have this intricate bit that I love doing about the housing crisis and prison people selling their assholes, but just the value of it, not their actual assholes. But anyways, I love doing it, but I realized that
you're getting into a new type of crypto.
Buttcoin for sure. And every time I do it in a normal set, it's a nice fun, like people buy in. I ask the crowd questions. It's such a good thing. And I did it as a host, and in the middle there was definitely like 5 "What the hell are you talking about?" At my face. And I realized that it's because it's an intricate bit. The next one I did was a really high energy, quick punchline one, and went way better. So it is more. You have to just be the high energy jokes feel like they work a lot more when you're the host.
And you might, if you switched those two, it might have worked. Like if you did that right after you outroed somebody. Yeah, you hit them with a quick one-liner, get them back on your side, let them remind them that you're the person on stage now, and it's still your show, and then get into something a little more intricate.
I wish you were like an angel I can put on my shoulder for after the sets, but like, why did they hate me, Steve? And you would give me the whole. Well,
I'd give it a shot, but I think you'd have a very sore shoulder.
God damn it!
I had a good time hosting. The show I hosted for you was my first hosting show, the only one I've done so far. Won't be my last, but I did the hosting class with Mike Katrobis back in August, and I haven't had the opportunity to utilize those skills yet. And I think it went okay, but I had a good time. I used to DJ back when I was younger, weddings and things like that. And I kind of took it was a very similar energy.
Yeah.
Just trying to you're just trying to keep everybody in the mood. Very similar energy. Just keep your energy up and get people ready for the show. But
and one thing about hosting too is it's even more important to connect with people in the audience when you're hosting. That's part of being a host. That's in the word. You're hosting them. You're bringing them. You're showing them hospitality. So the connection when you're hosting, even more important than when you're just doing a set.
Mm-hmm. I just had a thought and I lost me. Anthony.
Yeah, that's all right.
Next dance off stage.
No, I had a thought. I had a thought of just watching you flounder like a dead fish. I was like, oh, let's see. Is he something gonna come out of there? Nope, nothing's just gonna get below the camera line. So I'm the next hosting gig I'm doing is in Swansea, wherever the fuck that is, New Hampshire, and I know that you're there this weekend, right?
This Saturday?
No, I'm doing hosting the 15th or the 10th, whatever the next one of there is.
10th. You're there the 10th.
The 10th.
This is the Katrobus gig, I assume. I think that's the only thing in Swansea.
It has to be. I have no idea.
There is an open
this
mic in
Saturday
Swansea.
night. Really?
Oh, there was. I don't know if it continued, but a couple months ago they started one. I think at that same place you guys are going to be, but yeah.
Frog Brewery, yeah.
Well, hey, let me know how to host better there after you go. You'll be my cheat code and say you're going to fail, Anthony, or you're going to succeed, because I'm going to want to do that asshole joke again, right, Wayne? Should I do that or should I take it out?
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny. It's clever. It's not nasty. It's clever.
It's not nasty at all.
It's not.
You can make money. No, I'm not gonna do that one ever again as a host. God damn, did I learn my lesson? Shit. So where are you in the next couple weeks?
In Swansea on Saturday. I'm in Derry, New Hampshire next week. I don't know. I'm kind of all over the place. I actually have one gig that's coming up that I'm really looking forward to. There's a convention of hypnotists. And these are not like the stage hypnotists. These are like legit hypnotists. Well, not that stage isn't legit, but these are healing hypnotists and medical hypnotists and forensic hypnotists, that kind of thing. And there's this big convention, and I'm doing that, and I can't wait to do that. That's going to be a great gig.
Wow. Those are some of the best stage presence I've ever seen, are those hypnotists. Like that is, talk about the minute details mattering. That's what it's all about.
Yep.
There's like an X-ray R-rated hypnotist or something coming to my town.
Yeah, Frank Santos Jr.
Yeah. He's coming right to Pepperell. And he might have passed already, but yeah, right in Pepperell. I've never seen.
Well, his father passed. His father was a stage hypnotist, and now Frank Santos Jr. is kind of taking the reins.
Do you believe in that? Do you think hypnotism is real, or do you think it's people?
It's real, 100%.
I've seen it, and I don't believe that people are faking. I don't know how it works. And what's interesting is they'll bring a bunch of people on stage, and they'll decide who they can and who they can't, and they will dismiss people, and they'll keep people. I would love to. I'd love to be hypnotized.
I would be interested in
or roofied. What is it? What is it that I want it to be? Roofied or hypnotized?
I would like to have somebody try to hypnotize me, but I always go back to this experiment I saw where they had there was some show that they had some lady sitting in like a waiting room, and she was there for it was an interview, but it was a fake interview, and there was like 10 other people in the room, and a bell would go off, and the 10 people would stand up, and she'd look around and be like, "The fuck's going on?" So she would stand up too, and then they'd sit down, and then a little while later, somebody would leave, another person would come in, and they would switch out the people who were the plants that would stand up with people who were not. And at the end of it, everybody were just regular people, and they were all standing up when the bell went. So they were all kind of following suit. And I wonder if hypnotism is something like that.
Well, certainly suggestion, which is what you're alluding to. But I got to tell you, if I was in that room, I'd be looking for a bowl of dog food every time the bell went off.
Yeah.
Elevated. No, I never told you this, Wayne, but I took a deep dive into that with Darren Brown. Do you know Darren Brown, Steve? You ever heard of him?
I don't think so.
Is he the guy that did the one on Netflix where he tried to get people to kill somebody?
Yes. Yes, he sure did. He's done a million different things. He's a British hypnotist, but the way that he does it, though, it's kind of like how Penn and Teller do their magic, where they kind of show you how they do it while they do it, and it's still kind of impressive. So he does a whole series of how people are suggestible. He talks about why they send people, dismiss people, or they take people. They have little ways to see if you're suggestible, like. If you this is the best way I could describe it. Wayne, you're a pussy. And if I yelled at you as hard as I could and I went, sit down, and you sat down right away, you wouldn't even know you were doing it. You would just be, in the scenario, you're a pussy.
You wouldn't have to yell that loud. I'm just
But what I'm saying is that feeling of sitting down and not knowing why you're doing it, just you're doing it because it's a instinct. that's something that they can trick you into doing
I
for
think that's
longer
also
periods of
called
time.
marriage.
Marriage, yeah,
No
absolutely.
shit.
Yeah, so that's survival though. That's all that is. There's the survival instinct going on. But no, they slap people in the head. That's how they get them. So they're a suggestible person. So a lot of the time, the thing that they do is they'll give you a quick tap in the head, or they'll jerk your arm when they're shaking your hand. And
Those
they'll
are like the TV priests too. They do that too.
same idea exactly. This is all a thing that we have, a fight or flight mechanism that they're taking control over. Where we kind of like, you ever see a fainting goat where it's like, "Whoop," and it rolls over and it just fucking legs up, and it's getting hypnotized. It doesn't know why. It just has a really bad body, and so do we. That's kind of what I'm tangent, but yeah, hell yeah.
If I smack you on the forehead, what sign am I looking for? That you just take it, or that you don't punch me in the face, or?
They will. So they whisper a suggestion. So they'll say something like "sit" when they do it, and the person that they dismiss would be the person that doesn't sit. Like that. A lot of the time, it would be more like a jerking of the hand thing. But Darren Brown did a whole episode where he would push on the forehead, and like 3 people would fall over. He'd go sleep, and they'd fall down. And then one guy would be like, "What?" And he'd be like, "That's the guy you dismiss." He's like, the suggestible ones. Well, again, it's they get jerked and they get in fight or flight mode, and then you give a suggestion and they'll follow it. So you do that, and you can get them in a trance state, and which is you tell them to sleep, and then you can give them instructions after that. And he showed it on stage. Like he did it like one girl like spoke Japanese, never spoke Japanese before, kind of thing. He showed how he did it. He was whispering the words while he did the thing, and you're like, man, incredible.
That other one that he did, like I mentioned, the one where he tries to get someone to kill somebody. They like I'll try to find it. I'll send it to Steve. It's a good watch, but he starts off with like small suggestions of trying to get people to do things, and it's more and more grandiose. They do these more and more horrific things, and then the ultimate goal is to try to get them to push somebody off of a building.
Mm-hmm.
And
You'd have to show me my comedy set over and over again, and I would kill anybody you want me to kill.
Speaking of that, kind of in a way, do you have you had any other aspirations outside of comedy? Have you attempted acting or any sort of other Hollywood style things, or maybe a country album?
Well, I made a choice pretty early on. I moved to LA and I stayed there for like a minute. And the reason I didn't stay was, well, I'll give the long version of this. I was at the Improv, and I was in the outside room where the bar is, and I was sitting next to this guy, and we were just chatting. And I said, "Are you going on tonight?" He said, "Oh, no, they don't let me on stage anymore." Okay, and I didn't really ask him anything about it. I just let that go. And I was driving home with my buddy, and he'd been in LA for a while. And I said, "Do you know that guy I'm sitting next to?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, I know that guy." I go, "What's his deal?" He goes, he said they don't let him on stage anymore. He goes, he was really hot. Like everybody thought he was going to be the next big thing. And then it just never happened for him. And now they don't pay any attention to him, and they don't give him stage time anymore. And I remember at the time I was conflicted about whether I wanted to be there or wanted to be with my girlfriend back home in Boston. And that was kind of a turning point for me. I thought, I can be here and chase it alongside all these amazingly talented people who haven't made it. And maybe I never make it. Maybe I'm just chasing it until I'm that guy sitting at the bar who they don't let on stage anymore. Or I go home to Boston and have everything I want plus comedy. So I came home. That was the choice I made. Funny follow-up to that. I was home for a couple of weeks, and I got this, my then became my wife, called me at work and says, "Hey, listen, there's a casting agent in LA who's trying to get a hold of you." I said, "Okay, let me have her number." So I called, and she said, "Now you have to know that there was a live action version of the Flintstones starring John Goodman." All right.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So I call and I say, "Hey, this is Steve Bjork. You're looking to get in touch with me?" And she goes, "Yes, yeah, we're making a prequel to the Flintstones, and we're looking for a young John Goodman. And I've heard your name thrown around a few times. We'd like you to come in and audition." I said, "Oh, that's very nice, but I'm not chasing that anymore. Thank you very much." She goes, Are you sure? I go, yeah, I'm sure. She goes, because I've heard your name several times for this particular part. I go, yeah, I appreciate that, but thank you. So she calls back like 3 days later. She goes, look, I've seen a clip. I've seen your headshot. I really would like you to audition for this part. Fred Flintstone, the lead in the movie. What if we move the audition to New York City? And I said, I really appreciate that, but I'm really not interested. Now, that's a great story for civilians, but as you guys know, it was still just an audition. I could have given up my job, gone to LA, auditioned, maybe had a couple callbacks, been dangled, and then never got it. I mean, but the fun part of it is the guy who got it, who played Fred Flintstone, then went on to be in a sitcom with Jamie Gertz, who he was married to in the sitcom, and then became King Baratheon of Game of Thrones. So I could have been TV married to Jamie Gertz and been King Baratheon in Game of Thrones. So
Yeah, Robert, killed by a wild boar. Man, I fucking love it. I'm listening to the audiobooks right now, Game of Thrones. Not to hijack the story, Steve, but I got to tell you, I'm a fucking nerd. And that kind of show...
I've read all the books.
You've read all the books? Oh, come
Absolutely.
on. Yeah.
Fantastic.
I'm in Storm of Swords right now, and it's the first time where he's starting to really tie each individual point of view chapter in with each other in the books. Yeah. And I gotta tell you, Wayne's never even seen the shows and how they ruined probably what he's trying to do. Never gonna happen. That guy's gonna die before the books come out, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. He's leaving us hanging.
Yeah,
I heard somebody say that Bryan Sanderson should just finish the books. Everyone says he's the guy.
I don't know who that is.
Is he the guy who wrote the scripts for this?
No, he's written a bunch of other books. I can't remember the name of them. I have a friend that's like really into his stuff. He said I should check out the books, but he's a really another popular kind of like he's almost like fantasy science fiction cross if I understand it correctly.
I'll have to read how he talks about a flaccid penis before I allow him into that, because there's nothing like a George R.R. Martin imp sex scene.
Hey, whatever you're into, man.
That, for sure. They're 100% Tyrion. The noseless one. Okay, so we've gotten... once I get off, it's not even worth going on. So we've talked about all the dates that you're going to be at soon. SteveBjork.com for see more, right? Steve, where else can they find you?
Well, I'm an old man, so I'm on Facebook more than I'm on Instagram. But I'm on both. Steve Bjork comedian, or Steve Bjork comic on Instagram. Stephen Bjork with a PH, because I wanted to confuse people apparently on Facebook.
You, Wayne, you got anything else, Wayne?
I do, because this is the way we roll. I have one more question. I thought of specifically for you. Giving as we mentioned, you're a tenured comic. Do you have one comic that you are like, I can't believe I performed with him or her? And is there one where you're like, this is the one I want to perform with? And then I want to know your favorite comic and then the top 5 you hate the most.
Okay, Jesus Christ.
I'm kidding. The one the first question.
All right, can you repeat the question? I wasn't listening.
Yeah, so is there one
No,
comic?
I'm just kidding. All right, So I performed with a bunch of people before they were famous that I'm really proud of. I mean, Bill Burr, I performed with him quite a bit. I performed with him just a couple years ago at Giggles.
Nice.
Joe Rogan, certainly. There's a bunch. As far as somebody who's huge was my idol, and I was still pretty new, was Tommy Chong. That was
no kidding.
Absolutely. And he was just such a great guy. We, he came back to Boston several times, and I would open for him each time, and we'd hang out. He was just so much fun. He was a great guy. Other than that, I can't think of anybody. I mean,
the Rogan one's pretty cool.
Skull, I'm sure of things. Yeah.
You started the same year as Rogan, it sounds like, because I think he started 86 or 87, is that where you said around the range that you were starting?
He was established. We became pretty good friends. Like he would, a lot of times if he got a gig, he would use me as his opener. some great stories with Rogan that probably shouldn't be retold here. As far as somebody I would love to perform with, Brian Regan, Nate Bargatze.
He's incredible. I love him.
Yeah, Brian Regan's probably my top favorite, although Nate Bargatze is really absolutely coming on strong over the last several years. He's absolutely fantastic. One of my absolute all-time idols just passed away today, Bob Newhart.
Bob Newhart. Yeah, I actually meant to mention that. Yeah, that's a shame.
Yeah.
I mean, he was 94. That's incredible. That's a
He had a long run.
But
We really feel we wanted to say our condolences to Ed Driscoll too on it, because Ed was close to Bob and ran over his garbage cans. So there's
Ed's a good guy. Ed and I worked together a few times. We had a great weekend in North Conway.
really
Where we actually met and hung out with Jimmy Buffett.
come on.
Yeah.
Man, that must have been horrible. Like how could he meet the expectations you'd have of him?
You know what? It was fantastic because, number one, believe it or not, we didn't really know much about his music back then. I mean, this is probably 92. We knew he was a famous guy and he was a singer, and that's why he liked hanging out with us, because we didn't want to talk about his music. We weren't interested in asking about his songs. We just hung out like people, and that's why I enjoyed it.
Yeah, comedians are good hangs, because if you hang out with us any night we're doing anything like a set, we're only going to want to talk about ourselves. That's like literally, it doesn't. It's the only thing I'm going to want to talk about. I don't care if I ran into like Elvis. I'd be like, Elvis, what do you think of this? All right, we did it. So, Steve, thank you very much for coming on.
Let me touch real quick on. I think the last part of your question is who are the 5 comedians I hate.
Yes. Dish it out. I'll mute them.
I don't have any. I honestly don't. I don't hate. There's no comedians that I hate. There are comedians that I don't necessarily enjoy, but there's an audience for everybody. I don't have any hate in my heart for anybody.
That's a good answer.
I hate Wayne.
I wouldn't expect anything less from you.
Yeah, I say Wayne 5 times. That's what I say in my sleep. Arya Stark style.
That's my list too, actually.
Yeah, in a mirror. Exactly. That makes sense. All right, Wayne, you got anything else? You got any other cool things that maybe politicians he hates, perhaps?
No, we'll steer away from that. No, but I do want to say, Steve, thank you so much for coming on. This has been great. When I hosted that show for you, I brought you up as one of my favorite, probably my favorite headliner, as well as one of the nicest people that I've met in comedy, and I stand by that. I think I thank you very much for all the nice things and the guidance in the few times we've met that you've given, and I truly appreciate it.
Well, why don't you guys go fuck yourselves?
Yeah. You said you weren't going to gush till the end of the episode, you fucking asshole.
I waited till the end of the episode.
Yeah, then you gushed all over him.
Yeah.
No, seriously, guys, it has been great getting to know you. Thank you for letting me hang with you for a little while. I'm not sure I pulled my weight on this particular podcast, but
You absolutely did.
It was fun.
You did great. No one's ever following me into the woods with the dead bodies I go uncover in there. So thanks again, man. We'll see you guys soon.
Sounds great. Bye-bye. So what's the next milestone?
It's getting a kiss with you on camera, so that's the next one. We got to figure that out. Yeah, nice. There we go, Wayne.
Got
Another one off your list.